Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are on Iron Mountain Pass, playing as the Skaven against the Dark Elves. As you can probably see right away, we've got some nasty shenanigans going on with our weapons teams. And it was one of those things I've wanted to try out a little bit for a while, was the Warp Fire Throwers and Poison and Globadiers and all those sorts of units, and see if I could make them work. In my experience, they're kind of garbage. I haven't really had the best or most positive experience with any of the Skaven weapon teams. I know some people say the Poison and Globadiers are good. Personally, I've always found them to be kind of trash because they're pretty inaccurate, and they don't really hit that hard, and their short range means they often get shut down. Warp Fire Throwers, of course, have no armor to speak of, and they've got very low HP, so all in all, some pretty crazy disadvantages. But I really wanted to try them out just to see if I could, and if there was some reason that I was like missing out, or perhaps something that I could make them do to make them work a little better. So regardless, in this composition, it's centered entirely around these weapons teams. We've got 3 units of Warp Fire Throwers as well as 2 Poison and Globadiers, looking to essentially have a whole bunch of redundancy. So if one unit gets taken offline, there's still plenty of other more to provide additional support. Of course, we did bring some conventional firepower, 2 warp lightning cannons, 1 on either end, ready to lay the smackdown on my opponent's large targets. We are going up against Dark Elves here, so you can always expect some good cavalry play and some annoying big flyers. Sometimes you'll see dragons and that sort of stuff. In this case, no dragons, though we do have the Raven Heralds. So we do have 2 units of warp lightning cannons to shut those down. And the rest of the formation, it is simply Skaven Clan Rat Spears running the length of the line, the back line here. Nothing fancy, it's the unshielded variant to cut down costs, but they do have okay melee defense and they can kind of hold off large, especially against, say, Dark Riders. They'll hold their own. And then in the front line, we actually have 3 units of Stormwind with Sword and Board. These guys with their 90 armor, their bronze shields, they can kind of soak up damage and they can kind of hold the line against most, not all really, but at least most Dark Elf troops. They'll hold okay against basically everything except like Sisters of the Slaughter maybe, and Harganeth Executioners and Blackguard. Except those 3, though, they should perform rather well. And of course, for any big heavy hitters, we do have this plethora of weapons teams ready to roast or explode or poison and whatever enemy troops. Finally, for our Lord, we did bring Lord Skrulk, who is, of course, the usual competitive pick. We aren't trying to... while I was definitely trying to do some slightly gimmicky or cheesy stuff here with those ridiculous weapons teams, I definitely didn't want to go in with an absolutely garbage comp, because you always want to try to make it work. So we do have a Rod of Corruption, as well as the Robonicus, Stand Your Ground, Pestilent Birth, Vermintide, Blessed with Filth, as well as Pestilent Breath. So, whole plethora of abilities there, just to debuff and fight off enemies, and just draw them away and stall them. So for my opponent, going in with a very, I'd say, I don't know if it's a wide build, but a pretty big build. You can actually see from numbers, my opponent's over 1,000, playing as Dark Elves, which is pretty impressive. Up in this guy, he does have the Raven Heralds, who are a bit of an oddball choice. I'm not entirely sure why. I think Skaven have a lot of counters to the Raven Herald, so I'm kind of a little surprised. But regardless, we'll definitely see what they do. You can see immediately I'm going to pivot one of my Warp Lightning Cannons against them, while ordering the other Warp Lightning Cannon to fire down on the Cold One Knights. You can see my opponent did bring a single unit of Cold One Knights here, who are immediately taking casualties from those very nasty Warp Lightning shots. And you can see there's already 7 of them have been shot off their Raptors, and there's a Dreadlord in here with them. So the Dreadlord coming in with the Shield of Grant, which is a debuff to weapon damage. Not bad, not super useful, but a decent ability. Strength through Spite, which of course grants extra melee attack. Good to make Cold One Knights a little more competitive against non-large. Foe Seeker and Deadly Onslaught. So kind of the budget choice here, the Dreadlord with Sword and Board, but still a very potent choice. The front line here is composed of Bleak Swords, but one thing that is not immediately visible is the fact that they have a lot of chevrons. These guys are actually up to 7 chevrons, and these guys over here only up to 5, so probably a little short on resources, but nonetheless, you can see very heavily chevron up, which gives them very respectable stats. It means that against Stormvermin, for example, they should perform rather well. I'll at least hold for longer than they should normally. The Source of Shadows is backing them up with Pit of Shades, Penumbral Pendulum, Enfeebling Foe, as well as Melkos Miasma. A single unit of Dark Riders hidden here in the trees, ready to flank. And then, of course, my opponent does have a lot more than just Bleak Swords. He's got 2 units of Blackguard Corsairs, 2 Dark Shards, the Harganeth Executioners, and 2 Hellbroni and Dread Spears here. So definitely very varied and very well-rounded composition. He's basically got answers to just about anything I brought. But you can see immediately we are going to start picking away at these Raven Heralds. You can see actually 5 go down there in a single burst of Warp Lightning Fire, and that's just brutal stuff. And my opponent is trying to push in here with his artillery, but we kind of zone him out. So he's actually going to pull back. He's actually going to decide that discretion is the better part of valor, and pulls back with his Cold One Rider Knights, which is definitely a big benefit to me. You can see immediately here the burst of warp fire coming in and actually roasting some of our own Stormmen, which is a little unfortunate. I didn't really expect it to do that much damage, so immediately I'm going to start pivoting around, trying to get flank shots in. But the Stormmen definitely took a roasting there. In the meantime, though, the Warp Lightning Cannon is still pounding away. It's actually getting some friendly fire on our Stormmen. But the Cold One Eye is down to 20 miles now. We should be able to kind of bring them down. But you can see my opponent doing a pretty good job of just shutting them down. But you can see Warp Fire. It's burning. Now, unfortunately, this unit of Warp Fire throwers over there did get shut down. But immediately we do have the summons coming out. Warp Lightning still working away. I don't even know where the Raven Heralds went. You can see they're down to 7 miles in full retreat over there. Shortly we are going to retarget the Warp Lightning Cannon, but you can see that the over here the Warp Fire, with a bit of a peripheral shot, with a little bit of a flanking shot, is actually roasting these Bleak Swords and doing a number on them. Over here in the meantime, you can see those the Warp Fire thrower just roasting through these Blackheart Corsairs, as are the Opposing Wind Globes, and shortly we're going to be able to retarget those against the Stormvermin. And at the same time, you can see Skrull kind of belting these guys away with some Rod of Corruption. You can see more bursts of Warp Fire. If we look at the stats, I'm not entirely sure what their AP is. I think it might actually be better than one might think. You can see there's actually 7 explosive armor piercing in there. There's 3 AP missile damage. So, you know, with just that much damage on the stream and how many attacks there are on each little burst, because there are shots per volley of 4, so you're looking at like 28 damage with every volley. And they're going to be doing some roasting. And over here we do get my opponent pushing through with his Dark Shards. Suddenly finds himself getting roasted. You can see just a single volley there onto Dark Shards, taking off about half their HP. Definitely don't mess with the Flamethrower. But a huge misplay on here on my part, letting my Stormer just sit there and a gigantic Pyramidal Pendulum just annihilates them. But at the same time, my opponent, you know, he's been suffering. His Dark Riders aren't in position. They're only now finally starting to swing around the flank. As my other flanks start buckling, as he's able to shut down my Warp Fire throwers and make himself a bit of a nuisance, he's finally able to get into my backline and start really shutting me down, but not fast enough. You can see the Dark Shards over there going down. The Stormmen, who were really badly mauled. This was a huge mistake on my part. Should have pulled them clear, but they're able to pull through. Over here, the Dreadlord taking a bit of a pounding from the Poison Wind Globes, but you can see just how bad that accuracy. It's doing probably more friendly fire here than it is damage to the Dreadlord. So huge problem for me. I should have pulled the Stormmen clear and shifted them over to somewhere else. Just let the Clan Rat Spears, but that's was just a bit of a misplay on my part. Over here, the Warp Lightning Cannon crew is running for dear life because I was hoping to keep them alive and then come back later, but my opponent is having none of it. Meantime, we do take the Raven Heralds offline once more. They're down 2 miles, so putting them down. So if we take an overarching look at this point of the battlefield, you can see the Warp Fire Thrower is still the bounce of power is a little bit in my favor, but there's definitely a lot skewing it. There's some summoned Plague Monks still on the field. You can see some of these Clan Rats are summons. And a lot of it's just coming from the shooting, but the shooting, if it gets compromised, it's going to be downhill from there. So if the shooting goes down, we're basically screwed. So as I'm getting my backline just wrecked here, we're definitely going to start finding ourselves in a bit of a grim spot. You can see the Dreadlord there holding his own. Once again, huge mistake here, not using my Stormmen for better effect. And you can see a immediate rear charge from the Cold One Knights. And there's just a few of them left now, but they are going to be able to sort of really lower my leadership here and actually perhaps force a rout from the Stormmen. Which is really unfortunate because had I been a little more astute, I could have set the Cold One Knights or the Stormmen in and really dispatched the Lord there. But, you know, not everything is peachy keen for the Dark Elves. Here in the pits, the 2 spear units kind of getting mobbed by Stormmen, against which, even against when debuffed like the Stormmen, are still pretty powerful against these sorts of troops. There's a Skrullkin there debuffing them a whole bunch. And we still have those Warp Fire throwers working away. Up to 95 kills over here, so doing some major work. And despite the Pyramidal Pendulum going down here, the Poison Wind Globes can kind of shrug it off. They do have 100 armor, which I think some people don't realize. They're actually a fairly tanky unit. They're kind of like Iron Drakes in the sense that their melee stats are not very good. But they do have that armor survivability. The Dark Riders finally do get into the backline here, getting into the cookie jar. I should have pulled the Clan Rat Spears back, but really at this point my opponent is starting to find himself in a bit of a rough spot. Dreadlord, yeah, he's there. The Poison Wind Globadiers are there, but he's very dispersed, and we're going to be able to start picking troops apart one by one. Over here in the pits, once again, Clan Rat Spears going toe-to-toe with these very badly beaten up Bleak Swords, but the Clan Rat Spears, of course, are much lower quality, especially right now, as I do believe Murderous Prowess is still active. You can actually see how much of a boost the Murderous Prowess is. With their high veterancy, these guys are up to 48 melee attack, where they were at 39 before. So that just goes to show how crazy Murderous Prowess can be. And how much of a problem it can be for the Skaven here, just holding. But we are able to hold. We get another Rod of Corruption, which is going to melt all these high value, or maybe some not high value, but decent value infantry troops. The Plague Monks over here holding their own. And my opponent isn't quite able to shut down these Poison Wind Globes. He is kind of zoning them away, but we're going to rally our spears, come back into the fight. We've got Stormmen coming back. We've got the Clan Rats coming back. There's just so many Skaven that my opponent can't shut them all down. And here on the flank, Stormmen are rallying at 1600 HP. These guys are still a very competitive force. And my opponent, you can see the Bleak Swords, they're just getting roasted, taking flamethrower fire to the face, just firing up the hate, and one little burst here of green tinted flame is going to swing in against the Bleak Swords, do a bit of damage there before these poor Warp Fire Throwers are going to flee and quit the field there. Getting harassed the whole time by these very annoying Raven Heralds and Dark Shards, which we haven't been able to shut down in full. But, you know, we're in a decent spot. We're starting to, so here, at this point, yes, my opponent has had some success, but we have killed his Lord. His Lord's a goner at this point. We hit him with a Rod of Corruption at some point, and that melted him, or the Librobonicus at some point that melted him. Raven Heralds are basically gone. My opponent is essentially reduced to the single unit of Hargan Executioners, who, you know, they're pretty mauled, even though they can still do some work. Dark Riders, and I guess the Sorceress over here. So, kind of starting to run out of tools to hold back. And you can see there's still 30 Poison Wind Globadiers. There are 24 over there. We still got a Warp Fire Thrower team coming back. Skrulk is in the pits there, and we've got troops rallying all over the place, and slowly but surely sort of making their way. I'm trying to rally here on the top of this hill to get all my troops back together and counterattack one more time. And you can see, of course, Skrulk is just slugging it out here in the pits. He's one filthy rat who isn't going to let some ugly elves here take a chunk out of him. So he's really laying the smack down with his pretty high weapon damage. He's just swinging around his flail. I actually love Skrulk. What a filthy rat. But over here you can see we are using the flamethrowers in a bit of an unsanctioned usage here against the Raven Heralds, who of course have very low armor. And they are just getting washed away by flame. And they do finally shatter, which is finally going to sweep them off the field. You can see the Warp Fire Thrower here coming in with the Steel Chair in the last few minutes, and we're roasting some of these troops. You can see the Bleak Swords here are about to take another roasting. We're firing up those Warp Fire Throwers. Let's just look at this beautiful cinematic as those rats are just spewing green flame. I absolutely love the look of the Warp Fire Throwers. I love the look of the weapons teams in general. I really wish they were a little more competitive, but you can see here we are going to wash these Bleak Swords off of Skrulk with a burst of flame, and 105 kills on these guys, so definitely no pushovers. At this point, my opponent's army is definitely not doing too hot. You can see we're using our Poison Globes, just lobbing them at the Harganeth Executioners. Now, sure, these guys are not meant against large, and they're not going to do amazing against large, or against infantry, sorry. But they still do have 36 AP missile damage, which, with every connection, is a huge number. That's a huge amount of damage on these guys, on these Harganeth Executioners, with everyone that connects. So it does a lot of damage. You can see these guys dropping like flies, and of course these very few tattered sort of remaining troops are just not going to be able to do much. You can see another burst of green tainted flame there, melting these dread spears, breaking them. Of course, the debuff there. The debuff on these guys is actually it's not contaminated or anything, it's just burnt, so it's -8 leadership, but having quite an impact there. We're going to be able to plow through and get into these Dark Shards, which is going to mean that my Poison Wind Globes, who I'm kind of counting on here to shut down the Harganeth Executioners, are going to be able to fire unimpeded. You can see they're just lobbing their globes there. You can see, I think that guy took a globe to the face, he just doesn't care. He's like, whatever, take your smelly globes somewhere else. The Clan Rats, I'm actually pulling them away. That one over there you can see hit the ground, but what I'm doing at this point is simply peeling back, and you can see that the globes, you know, they're not exactly precise. They do some damage here and there. They're definitely hitting a bit, but what I'm going to do at this point is simply, you can see another volley coming in, just pouring in, smacking those Harganeth Executioners. I'm ready to sort of pull back, do my pro StarCraft and Marine splits here. We still have plenty of ammo. We still got 5 rounds on these guys. We still got 4 over there, and we have enough ammo to pick these Harganeth Executioners apart. And my opponent at this point is simply going to GG out of the game. He really didn't have much left, so not entirely surprising. But looking over the stats real quick, one of the things that, so a few things that I did wrong. One was allowing a unit of Stormmen to get bogged down by my opponent's Lord for way too long. Against the Cold One Knights and the Dreadlord, I should have simply pulled those Stormmen out, left the Clan Rat Spears to hold their own, and gotten the Stormmen into the main fight. That would have made a huge boon. They could have been so much more useful in literally any other fight. There was zero reason for them to be fighting some of the only AP my opponent had on the field. So that was one mistake. Other mistakes, getting a little over-anxious with the Warp Fire Throwers initially when I should have first shut down the Dark Shards. It meant that one unit of Warp Fire Throwers essentially just got routed off for no gain. They just fled. Warblending Cannons got some pretty good value, shutting down the Cold War Knights as well as the Raven Heralds. Essentially, they paid for themselves just in the amount of damage they did to these 2 units, and they did a little bit of damage to some other units as well. So definitely no pushovers, definitely doing okay. Skrull doing some monstrous work, but really, you can see these Warpfire Throwers getting 100 plus kills, 60 on the other unit, and they're a pretty cheap unit. It's important to keep in mind that at 600 gold, they're not that expensive, and they were definitely doing a lot of HP damage as well. It's not like they were simply doing just kills. So definitely they were doing a lot of work, and they managed to roast some of the Dark Shards when they got into range. They managed to roast basically everything that they got their filthy flat fire on. So surprisingly, these Clayderhat Spears actually raked in a lot of kills. I'm not entirely sure what they were fighting to rack up that many kills, but somehow they got 53 kills. Yeah, it was kind of a grindy, atrocious battle. We climbed out at the end with just barely a few more troops. My opponent's lost his Lord, probably hurt him quite a bit. Having this many morale debuffs as well, because the Skrull applies Contaminated, which is -10. You got -8 from the Warpfire Throwers. So you can potentially get quite a bit of a leadership debuff there, which is very nice. But regardless, definitely these guys are not terrible. I still don't think I'd recommend them in most cases. They just take too much micro and they're too squishy and flimsy in my opinion. But you can make them work. Definitely don't underestimate them. They can definitely sometimes get something done. For my opponent's build, I'm not a big fan of the Raven Heralds. I guess there might be a decent counter to Doom Wheels, but you're probably better off just relying on Cold War Knights there, in my opinion. Personally, I like using a lot of cav against Skaven. Skaven struggle against cavalry, in my experience. Especially a lot of cavalry, so in my opinion, this cav presence is really not adequate. Now, sure, his Dark Riders performed well, and that shows just how much damage cavalry can do, especially later on. But my opponent just didn't have enough cav. He focused way too much on this infantry, which, yeah, they did well at cleaving through crap, but they were not able to. They were not really able to sort of carry the day. I think they were kind of getting kited, and they were getting spread out and strung out and just shut down by the superior Skaven mobility. It's one of those problems that you have if you're dealing with Skaven infantry. Skaven infantry is faster than yours, and basically every case except maybe like Beastmen, and even there I think Beastmen are not faster. So and maybe Wood Elves. But regardless, good game to my opponent, Spark Gang. Like I said, I try to focus more on cavalry, but definitely the only questionable choice here, I think, is the Raven Heralds. A single unit of Arganthic Executioners, you know, it makes some sense as a sort of nutcracker unit to deal with Stormmen or units like that. They can perform well, and they definitely paid for themselves in this matchup. So regardless, good game. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed seeing some filthy rat weapons teams and some nasty Skaven shenanigans. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below if you're not already. If you have any comments, any criticism, anything like that, be sure to share them. I'd love to hear what you guys think. I'll be sure to respond as soon as I can. As usual, guys, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Over now.